this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Well, welcome to Red Pill Nation, Daily Dose of Reality. I'm your host, Nathan Davis. Johnny Henderson, the founder and director, and sometimes co-host of the show, was supposed to be on tonight, but he lost his voice. He is still battling this cold that he's had for a couple of weeks, so I hope he does get better soon. Miss having him on the show to harass him. But anyway, on to the news. Now, this is some disturbing stuff. In North Texas, they are setting up roadblocks and asking for saliva and blood, and also doing breathalyzer tests. And this is one of the more, free states that's doing this. Now, this came up in Infowars.com. This was a Scott Gordon article. Basically, some drivers along a busy North Fort Worth street on Friday were stopped by police roadblocks and were basically asked for blood, saliva, and breathalyzer tests. And, I mean, one of the people said that they thought it was just wrong. Well, it is. It's against people's, Fourth Amendment right. I mean, they have a right to drive along the road unaccosted if they're not breaking any law. And here, basically, they're stretching the arm of authority against the people to just basically check into their personal habits. If they're not driving erratically, they're not driving, in any manner that's dangerous to others, I don't see the reason for this. And it's a total violation. I mean, they're taking blood and saliva samples. I mean, and that could be job security. I mean, what if you are doing a drug that, could endanger, like you smoke marijuana or something like that. And, the place that you work at frowns upon that. What if the police share that with your employer? Yeah, that's you could lose your job. Crazy. Because, I mean, with marijuana, it stays in your system for, up to a week or something like that? So, I mean, if you smoke marijuana, you're not using it right then and there, but you smoked it during the week or something, still in your blood, it'll show up. So that's endangering your job. Because what if... we don't know what they're going to do with that. So yeah, that's a total violation. I hope that's not something new that's going to spread across the nation. I mean, that's a possibility, though. I mean, we are becoming more and more a police state. They're really protecting the police. They're allowing them to do whatever they want. They get away with a lot of different things. I mean, like the one guy that tased the woman that was handcuffed because she, ran away. Even though she wasn't that far, she was like 10 feet away from him, he pulled out his taser. Instead of, just walking the few steps to grab her, she wasn't going to go very far in her, being that she was handcuffed. And instead of doing that, he tased her. She fell, hit her head, and now 2 years later, they don't have any, brain activity. She's brain dead. She's dead. But no charges were pressed against him. They're getting away with so much nowadays, and I'm not saying all police officers are bad, but there are a lot of them that are abusing their authority. And it's not anything new, but I think that those that are abusing their authority are given a lot of protection. I mean, look at what happened with Dorner in L.A. I mean, these police officers were so paranoid and crazy over what was going on that they were shooting at vehicles that looked like his. You know, they hit 2 women that were delivering newspapers in the morning. You know, because they were driving, the same make and model and color vehicle. I mean, there was no attempt to identify who was in that vehicle. And they really didn't go after these police officers. Oh, they were just paranoid because of what was going on. No! You're a police officer. You're supposed to use, critical thinking in these type of situations. You're supposed to have a level head. You're not supposed to fly off the handle because, there's a crazy guy out there. That's what you're there for, to serve and protect. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, that's what we're heading for, is more and more of a police state. And you see it all the time. These police officers are getting militarized gear. They're getting militarized vehicles. And what for? They ride them around. I mean, these are some intimidating things, and they're using them against citizens. There's been several peaceful protests where the military and the police were used, and they use LRAD. Yeah, I saw the video of that where they were using LRAD against peaceful protesters, and these are American citizens. It's just very, very scary. Because they're slowly leeching away our rights, and they're giving the rights to those that are supposed to be serving and protecting us, and they're giving it to themselves as well. They're protecting themselves from the people. What was it in Washington, D.C.? I think there was, there's doing something up there. I can't remember what I saw last, but, what was it? I can't think. There was a report on Monday I did. My brain just went, puh. Immigrants, illegal immigrants. They are giving them driver's license. I don't know if I reported that or not, but they're giving them driver's license to illegal immigrants. And the majority of the people in Washington, D.C. are okay with it. I mean, I don't understand that. To me, it's just like they're giving them all these rights. And I think what's happening is that they're, I explained this on Monday, is I think that they're trying to blur the borders between Mexico and the United States and Canada and the United States, and pushing towards an American Union. I mean, if you're giving illegal immigrants all certain rights that they really shouldn't have, I think that's we're kind of blurring the lines here, and that shouldn't be. I mean, it's a very difficult process to get into this country. I mean, you have to go through a lot. It's very financially taxing. It's very grueling. I mean, my wife's from Jamaica. She had to go through a grueling process for citizenship. And there's people that are just crossing the border, and now they're giving them handouts. I mean, that's the problem I have. I mean, I stated this to people before, and they get all irate, and it's like, no, you don't understand how difficult it is to get in this country. They should be in line like everybody else. They shouldn't get a free handout. I think that we should make it a little easier for people, streamline the process, but I don't think that we should be giving all kinds of benefits to people because they're illegal. I don't even think that people that were brought here as children should be given special privileges. That's not on us. We're sorry your parents brought you here, but you need to go through the process. We'll give you time to get their paperwork in order and stuff like that. I'm fine with. But not to give them a free ride, no. They still need to go through the process to get citizenship. They shouldn't just be given citizenship. Because that's cutting in line. There's people that have gone through the process that, had to go through all these hardships to get there, and you have people just walking across the border, and they get all kinds of good stuff. But anyway, our rights diminish. Illegal immigrants get all kinds of rights, but whatever. On to another article. This again was also in InfoWars as well. Got I think one more from InfoWars, but basically this was going over Obamacare and how basically Obama, because he's made these changes to Obamacare through executive order, he didn't okay it with Congress. He didn't do anything with Congress, and he's just doing whatever he wants. And it's first off, it's not going to fix anything. Second off, it's an abuse of power. He threatens to use executive order all the time, and then uses it. But I mean, he threatens the Congress: if you don't do what I want you to do, I'm going to use executive order. Well, that's not what it's there for. It's not there for a threatening tactic. It shouldn't even be there. I mean, you should go through the process of getting it approved by Congress and veto process and all that. That's what was there. Executive orders came about under, I believe, Abraham Lincoln, and it's just been an abuse of power. It's giving the president more power than what he should have to maneuver around Congress in certain instances. And here he is doing this again, and he's used executive orders more than Bush did, and he put Bush down for doing so. He said he wasn't going to do that. Another lie. But don't impeach him. He'll be called a racist. And this one really upset me. It kind of pissed me off because, I have a kid, and she's 3. She's in, she goes to an elementary school. She has certain things that she goes to these classes for. She has special, needs. They're not that bad. She's just slightly delayed in her speech. And so we have a program here in the school system that they offer to help her. And I've taken her to school. I've bypassed the line of cars there. I have bypassed the line of cars and walked right into school to pick my daughter up. I don't think anything of it. I'm not going to wait in a line of cars to pick my daughter up. I'm just going to go right in the school. Sorry, my daughter. I'm going to get her when I want to. Well, and this was on Infowars.com. It's also on CBS, I believe, or ABC. One other place I saw it. A father was arrested for trying to pick his kids up from school because he bypassed the line of cars. Now, this line of cars was going out to the highway. And there's a lot of parents that are concerned about this because it's a very busy highway, and they're made to wait there for like a half an hour to pick up their kids. And instead of doing that, because the man said, I don't have the time to do that, he just walked right into the school and went up to the front desk, said, I'm here to pick up my kids. Well, the sheriff didn't like this because, they do it all the time, and arrested him. Because he told him that he was going to get his kids, he didn't care, and he wasn't going to follow the rule. He was, he should be able to pick up his kids whenever he wants to, which I believe is true, is right. You should be able to pick up your kids whenever you want to. You should not have to wait in a line. You shouldn't have to, go through this process. It's your child. But they're kind of, hindering the rights of parents. They're taking away control over what goes on with your child and that they have, in their possession. When they have your child in their possession, they almost claim ownership. I mean, it's a very weird thing, and it's just, I don't get it. There's so much going on in schools now. I mean, if you take and you hold your finger out like a gun, you go bang, bang, they'll expel you. A kid here in Virginia Beach had an airsoft gun. He was standing out in his front yard. He wasn't even at the bus stop, but he was waiting for the bus. And he and his friend were shooting a target in a tree. They were seen, and the school found out, and they were expelled. They weren't even at the bus stop. They didn't take it to school, anything like that. He was in his front yard. But they expelled him. No explanation other than, I don't know. I don't think there was any explanation, good explanation for that one. There was another one. He had a yo-yo, and it had not a yo-yo, a top, and it had one of those zip things that spun it for you, and you pulled the trigger and it dropped it down. Well, he was trying to hand it to his friend. The kid said that he was trying to hand it to his friend, and he tapped him on the shoulder with it, and he got expelled because his teacher's scenario of events was that he held it up to somebody and went bang, bang. Wasn't even a gun. Didn't even look like a gun. Kids wear certain shirts, that have political slogans or, political affiliations, like, not my favorite character, but Mitt Romney and others. And because the teacher's an Obama supporter, you need to turn that inside outward or go home. I remember that. And I saw, and I believe that we read excerpts from it. I don't think we read the whole book because of the content of it was The Bluest Eye. And now it's preferred, reading. And it has a lot about incest and pedophilia and all these different things, and it's not made in a sense of vilifying it. It's open to interpretation, and you're reading it from the perspective of the person that is, engaging in the rape, and parents are outraged that this is reading material, and they're discussing the points of this book. I remember The Bluest Eye when I was in school in the 90s, and we just read excerpts. We didn't read the whole book. We just read certain parts that were about her perception of herself based on a mug that had Shirley Temple on it, and she had blue eyes and blonde hair. And seeing that, she thought that was beautiful and she was ugly. And going by that racial definement of beauty. I mean, that's what we stuck with. We didn't go into the parts of the book that dealt with the sexual aspect. We just stayed with, I think the first chapter. I don't remember exactly what parts we read, but it was certain excerpts. We didn't read the whole book because of the content. But now they're reading, required to reading. It's required reading in 11th grade. And while they are, 16, 17 at that, level, it's still, a very controversial book to be reading at that age, and especially with the perspectives and viewpoints and how it's portrayed, it may not be understood by somebody that young. Of course, I think it should be up to the parents, if the school district should offer that. And I think the only way you have that is if you have, the parents have access to the school board and the school board making the decisions, not the Department of Education. That's so far removed from these school districts, and they don't really hear the outcries of the parents. That's one of the major problems I have with the Department of Education. It's a appointed position, first off. Second off, they don't listen to the parents and their concerns. And we're number 25 overall in the world? We're the most modernized nation, but we're 25th as far as our education system goes. And it shows. I mean, the kids coming up today don't know. I mean, it's been ongoing. It's not something new. Even my generation and before that, I mean, people really don't know a lot of different things. If you watch Mark Dice's videos where he goes and he just asks people random questions or, tells them something that's entirely false. I mean, on 9/11, he was asking people, so how are you going to memorialize the bombing or bombing of the Sears Tower by the Decepticons? I mean, just stuff like that, and people don't even, register that that's totally made up and just go, oh, I don't know, it was a tragedy. Do you think that with Osama bin Laden dead from the leader of the Decepticons that they're that's going to stop him? No, I mean there's just this disconnect from reality with a lot of people, and it's scary. And a lot of it has to do with the education system. It's very flawed, and when you have such a powerful agency that's so far removed from the kids that are in the classroom, that are not threatened by being voted out. They're appointed. They stay there however long they want. They're not thrown out by votes based on, if you like them or not. They're not going to be doing the best job. Now, if you have your school board making the decisions, the primary decisions of how your children are educated in a public school system for your county, and you would need community involvement. You would need parents to be involved in this. You would need parents to, be concerned about what the school board's doing. But you would have more influence over the education of your child. If you don't like the direction that school board's sending your child, vote them out. Of course, I do believe that we need to revamp and bring back integrity in the voting system. I think that having touchscreen voting systems, which have been shown back in as far as 2001, are flawed and can easily be changed, and there's no backup. There's no way to go back and make sure that the votes have been counted and tallied correctly, because it's just numbers in a system. There's no paper, ballot that you can go back to. And I think that with the 2000 election farce, in Florida, I think what they were doing was they were using that to kind of promote, look at the flaws in the paper ballot system. Instead of, saying, look, we can redo the paper ballots and make them better, they were pushing people towards this touchscreen voting system. And it's very suspicious to me, because it seems like they want to have control over the votes and who gets in. Now, of course, a lot of people say they have less control, over county levels, but again, it's still something where if you get the wrong people in power at your county and your state level, they can have influence on the voting system. They can have influence on who gets in and who doesn't, because it's easily hacked, and there's no, record of it. So that's something we need to look out for. Now, this came up a long time ago, and I have another article on it as well. But basically about Obama, speaking of votes and voting systems, and that he stole the election, which I don't think Mitt Romney would have, done any better. But Mitt Romney stole the primary from Ron Paul, but that's neither here nor there. That they padded the books when it came to unemployment. Now, I've heard this before. It's nothing new. I mean, unemployment is based on basically who's drawing unemployment benefits. Well, they have a timeline, and when people's unemployment runs out, well, they're no longer counted. So it looks like, unemployment's going down, when it's just people are no longer, being tracked by the benefits. The other problem is that the jobs that were created were mostly part-time jobs. They weren't full-time jobs with benefits. So I'm sure that aided him in showing, look at all these people that aren't getting health care from their employer. Well, of course not, because, you've regulated small businesses and everything else into a position where they can't afford to provide people full-time employment and benefits. You've increased their overhead to a point where they can't do that. And now you have people, talking about raising the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, to $11 an hour from 7 something. And, those that sit there and go, oh, we need to do that because, people need to get proper pay. Well, most businesses first off, pay over minimum wage, and those that don't are usually, they're very low-level jobs. And usually they're part-time. Well, they're going to be cutting their hours for those jobs in half. And it's going to hurt small businesses. They're not going to be able to stay in business. It's going to push them out. It's going to help corporations by basically holding back competition, because now they're increasing their overhead by telling them you have to, because of people like Walmart. If you could get the mindless masses to stop buying from there, maybe they would, realize that their strategy of payment isn't right. And of course, Sam Walton isn't to blame here. It's his, kids that took over. They're not running it the same way he was. He actually cared about his employees. But you're going to take small businesses that can't afford to pay that much, and you're going to force them out of business because they can't maintain the overhead and make any kind of profit. I mean, you have to make profit to grow your business. You have to make profit in order to, pay inventory and live. I mean, if you can't live off the business you're running, why be in business? And so they're forcing these people out of business, and it's helping these corporations to basically take over. They won't have any more competition growing out of the market if that happens. It's just this stupid rhetoric of, we gotta help the employee. Well, what about the employer? If the employer's not there, the employee doesn't have a job. Come on. There's just this warped mentality that I don't understand. And because I've been around small businesses, a lot of my family owns small businesses, I saw the effects of raising minimum wage and how it affected how they could do things. And, well, we can't get this inventory, we can't add new inventory. It just caused undue stress on small businesses. And it's not fair. It's not fair. I mean, it's like farmers, small farmers that provide a better product than these commercial farmers that do crop rotations, that have healthy soil, that have healthy products, have the same regulations as corporate farmers that are, pumping all kinds of toxins into the ground, that have soil that is just devoid of life because they don't do crop rotation or anything like that. And their primary crop is corn for ethanol and high fructose corn syrup. And the corn that they use for high fructose corn syrup and ethanol has no nutritional value. You can't eat it. So the majority of corporate farmers are not growing edible stock. They're growing stuff for sugar and fuel, which is not even a very, viable fuel. It's not as combustible as gas. It's not a substitute. I mean, when they added this, in, it caused a hike in the price of gas because it costs more to produce ethanol. Getting off the subject here, so they're talking about he falsely, they padded the books to make it look like unemployment was going down. Quantitative easing was used to kind of, stimulate Wall Street and everything like that. It was a, bailout for Wall Street, basically. And still is, because now we're doing it unlimited, because they have no other, out. They don't know what to do. The system is collapsing, and the only thing they know what to do is to pump more currency into the system. And that's like falsely holding everything up and creating a bubble. I mean, many economists that predicted the housing bubble are saying we're heading towards a currency bubble which will burst. And China, I've said this before, China's over there and Russia's over there stockpiling gold and silver. They're preparing. China's talked about it, and I read this article, in the Chinese media over a year ago, more than a year ago, that they were trying to figure a way out of using the U.S. dollar as their, reserve currency. So if they get out of this, the largest holder of our debt, the biggest, consumer of our debt through currency, if that happens, it'll cause a whiplash effect. We will be inundated with all this fiat currency that they hold, because most of our currency is held overseas, not in the U.S. So if that comes back at us, that's going to cause hyperinflation, because we will have all this currency we won't know what to do with, and we're pumping new currency in all the time. So quantitative easing has been used and was falsely making it look like we were doing better. Oh, we're doing so much better. I mean, most people that knew what was going on and used Austrian economics or other free market economic schemes were seeing that what they were saying wasn't true. I mean, a lot of the people that were predicting the housing bubble were using Austrian economics and other things that showed them that, this is causing a bubble. It's not working. But the people using Keynesian economics were just blind to everything. They didn't know what was going on until it happened, and then even then they were like, oh, we didn't see it coming. And then they kept pushing Obamacare. Now, Obamacare came out after the election, and they were saying, oh, it's going to be so great for everybody. I mean, all the talking points. I mean, they ran down like 5 talking points about Obamacare and how great it's going to be and how great, I don't know if I printed that out, and how it's going to be such the best thing since sliced bread. It's going to help out seniors. It's going to do all these great things. And now they're apologizing and saying, oh, nobody can see this coming. I mean, so many people told them it wasn't going to work. But, oh, no, they didn't believe them. And so now we're stuck with this mess that we have to clean up because, well, it was thrown in our laps. And, the Democrats would not budge on it. They would not. I mean, I applaud Ted Cruz and others for trying. I mean, even Crybaby Boehner to a point, because he held out to the last minute, but he folded at the end, and it was just kind of a, holding it off as long as they could. But it was going to happen. It was going to be released, and we all knew what was going to happen. Well, all of us that, are awake and knew. Most other people were so, excited about it. And now we find out that, I think it's been 7 weeks since its debut. Around 3,600 people have been successfully signed up for this Obamacare. 3,500 out of the how many millions of people? Oh, it's working greatly. It is such a phenomenal success. And Sebelius, or whatever the heck her name is, Sebelius, was in Miami, Florida, with a horde of media, and she was going there to the center that they had there that had people helping people sign up with healthcare.gov, and while she was there, it crashed, I don't know how many times, I don't know if it says it in the article, but it crashed a number of times, and the number of people that were signed up successfully at this location during the time that she was there was 2 people. And one person they talked to said, oh, it's crashed 3 times since we've been here, but we're getting there. I mean, people are still buying into this, and it's like, it's caused already a hike in the cost of healthcare insurance. I told somebody this, today, that there was already hikes built into this before it was released, because you have to have people with pre-existing conditions getting the same premiums as people with that are healthy. Well, they built in the price hike before it was released so that, they could cover this influx of new, people with pre-existing conditions. Now, what are they going to do with these people? Because they're going to cancel their policies. Now, of course, they're trying to stop that in Congress, and I need to read if they actually got that passed. But still, I mean, here all these people were being canceled after Obama said that that's not going to happen. He lied to the people. Pelosi lied to the people, and here, Monday she was stammering and stuttering and about, the things that she said, and she was basically saying that, that's not what she meant, or, it's really working. I mean, the woman is either delusional or just trying to pull the wool over the people's eyes to pass something that they know will not work and will be detrimental to the people. I mean, usually with socialism, it creates a impoverished class and a rich, politically held-up elite. I mean, you look at all of them. I mean, you have these people living in poverty. Look at China. I mean, really, do you have that many people do you have a middle class? You really don't. You have people living in poverty, and you have people that are held up by the politics of the country. They're regulated into the hierarchy, and they're held aloft. They're given special privileges, which is not really on paper how it's supposed to work, but people are greedy, and just because something works out on paper does not mean it will work out in real life. And for this healthcare plan that has 30,000 pages of regulations, that's ridiculous. And who's read all this? Nobody. So you've got people enforcing this that haven't read all the regulations because it's impossible. And so nobody knows what's really into, all these regulations. I mean, there's some people that they're watchdog groups that are trying to go through this pile of regulation papers. But it's a grueling task. And on to something else. I mean, the feds are coming up with a new gun regulations. This came up in The Hill. TheHill.com, I believe it is. Excuse me. I think I'm trying to come down with something. I hope not. I don't know what my health care is going to be next year. I actually have pretty good health insurance, so hopefully it stays that way. But anyway, there's a new gun regulation, or they're trying to do this because of basically guns in transit that go missing. Now, really what they're not doing is they're not really telling people how they're going to enforce this law, how they're going to try to track down these missing guns. I mean, the only thing that I can see is that they might start going door to door and start searching people's houses and checking your guns and seeing if those numbers, are in their database of stolen guns. So, I mean, they're going to be stepping on people's rights. And if you're a registered gun owner, I mean, they could come into your house and say, you have registered guns, we want to make sure that they're all registered. I mean, that this law is ripe for abuse. 190,000 firearms were estimated to have been lost or stolen last year. And so they're coming up with this law, and they're really not saying, well, we don't know how we're going to do it yet, but we need to do something to track these guns down. Well, I mean, really, what you need to do, what would, help in this is to, end the war on drugs, and the war on prostitution, and these wars that falsely stimulate these underground cartels and criminal entities. Those are the ones that are doing it. And they're doing it from funding from, drug money and from prostitution. So if you end those as being illegal, of course you're not going to stop, the problem, but you will reduce it to a point where you won't have 190,000 guns being stolen. You'll reduce gun violence. You'll reduce the number of people in jail, which they don't want you to do because of private jails, and they have to meet their quotas. And the government's helping them out with that to basically make sure that they get the amount of people they need in the cells. But anyway, if you say that you're racist, you know, we're all racist because we don't like Obama. I mean, that's the thing, is that I've seen so many people say that. I had somebody say that today. It's a friend of mine. You know, there's so many racists and bigots because they don't like what Obama's doing. I was like, no, it's because, you know, he's making a very authoritative state. He's, you know, Bush times 10. I mean, he's doing a lot of bad stuff. I mean, it's not because he's black. It's because he's really not a good president. You know, he's very authoritative. He's bringing us down a very socialist path that's very dangerous. Very corrupt, centralizing power, you know, giving himself more power. And I think that he is using that race card to his advantage because people are afraid to speak out against him because, oh, we'll be labeled as racist. We'll be labeled as, you know, bigots. Well, we won't be reelected for those that, you know, are in Congress. We won't be reelected because our constituents will think we're racist if we speak out against Obama. And they wonder why their percentage is like in, you know, the low teens to single digits. It's because they're not doing anything. They're not, you know, standing up. They're spineless. They're supposed to be there to stand up for the people. The people are tired of Obama. You know, take one for the team. You're there to serve the people. You work for us. And Obama is basically stepping all over the law, the Constitution, which he took an oath twice. Actually, no, 3 times. No, 4 times. Because, let's see, the last election, I think the date fell on a Sunday. So he did one that day, and then he did one the Monday. And the one before that, because he flubbed it all up in 2008, they redid it the next day. So he's gone through the oath of office 4 times. And it still hasn't sunk in that, you know, it says to basically to serve and defend the Constitution of the United States. He has stepped all over and desecrated the Constitution of the United States as well as the American people. I mean, you know, First Amendment rights. If you're close to Secret Service and the president deems your peaceful protest something that he doesn't like, you can be arrested. This has happened. Freedom of the press really doesn't exist. I mean, they strong-arm them if they don't like what they're reporting. Fourth Amendment rights have been stepped on. Second Amendment rights have been stepped on. I mean, go try to find ammo. The government's buying it up. For what? You know, they're making this shortage happen because they're buying up ammo. Oh, there's no ammo. I mean, you really can't find certain calibers. Rimfire, good luck, which is a small calibers, but still. Yeah, it's the most common caliber, you know, like .22. It's a very common caliber, but you can't find it anymore. It's very hard to find. And this is all because they're buying ammo. They're making the shortage happen. They're causing it. So, you know, liberals sit there and say, oh, we're not going to step on your gun rights. Well, yeah, you can have guns, but you can't find ammo. I tell you. It just doesn't make any sense why people still support this man. And I think it's because they are just blind by, I guess, his charisma. But if you listen to what he says half the time, I mean, when he said raising the debt ceiling doesn't raise the debt, because that sticks out in my mind like a sore thumb. My mouth dropped open. I mean, I really don't watch the news that often, but I caught that, and I was just like, what? What did he just say? Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to raise the credit limit on my credit card, but I'm not going to spend anything. Yeah, that's not going to happen. And, I mean, $17 trillion and going? and it's going to get worse. I mean, many analysts say within the next probably 20 years, which that'll probably shorten up, because we have Obamacare now. Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security will make up our entire budget. The rest will go into deficit, which means it will become part of the debt if they don't cut it. And that's within a short period of time, which means that we'll be adding like $2-3 trillion at a time. And you look at Paul Ryan's plan. I mean, all he was doing was cutting the incremental increases per year, and then in 10 years, oh look, we saved $1 trillion. No, you didn't. You didn't cut anything. Cut something. No, you're just cutting the incremental increases and making it look like you're doing something. But you're not cutting what they already have. I mean, and people sit there and think that one side's better than the other. They're both playing the people and making bukus of money doing it off their special interest buddies and their corporations that are now people. I mean, really. I want to see the Supreme Court justices gone. I want to see Congress gone. I want to see the administration gone. I think all of them need to be thrown out. I mean, really, the Supreme Court coming up with that kind of ruling? Really? And you think that they held up Obamacare? Really? Do you think they're for you? No. The special interest groups have them in their pocket too. And the corporations. I mean, it's not that hard to see. I mean, it's not a conspiracy theory either. I mean, if you look at the facts, it's not, conjecturous to say that these people are being bought off. The American people pay Obama $400,000 a year. But his special interest buddies raised him $1 billion for his campaign. Who do you think he's going to be working for? Just like Bush. We pointed to all the negatives of Bush, and we said how bad he was, and then Obama gets in there, and all those people that sat there and said how bad Bush was love Obama. Love what he's doing, and they don't sit there and see what he's doing is wrong. He's so great. But he's doing the same things, if not worse. NSA, he increased spying. I mean, now we find out that Britain is being spied on. I forgot about that article. But Britain is being spied on. Their people. And British intelligence okayed NSA spying on their people. We're going towards globalization, and whether we like it or not, they're forcing us into it. Forking us. Pretty much, they got a fork in our back, and they're pushing us off a cliff. I mean, they're really doing that, and we should turn around and, if the people stand up against them, and I'm not saying militarily, you don't have to do that. You can do it, other ways. There are other ways. I don't want to go into too many details, because if they find out, there's certain things I've got planned. But I think I think if they find out, they'll try to hedge against it. They'll try to stop it. I think there's a lot of people that have plans out there that how to go about waking people up. I mean, I think going out there and the ones where they have impeach Obama signs on the overpasses and things of that nature, I think that's a great plan. I think that, waking people up, like, look, there's a lot of people that don't like this guy. And it's not for racial reasons. I mean, it was brilliant to put a guy in there that nobody knew. First off, nobody knew where he came from. He just appeared out of nowhere. I mean, he's kind of like Jimmy Carter, but even more mysterious, because nobody knew him. And he gets into power with all these promises, and he says, oh, I'm going to do this and that. And, I mean, people were just swooning over him like, he's a rock star. And the only things that he holds to are the things that are going to be detrimental to our country, not a positive. And if you say anything against him, if you say anything that, against what he's doing, You're labeled. And he's playing into that. The Trayvon Martin case. I mean, this guy's still being, attacked by the media. I mean, that case has no relevance on what's going on in society. The majority of black people that are killed by blacks. The second highest would be white people killed by black people. And then you had white people killing black people. It's the lowest on the totem pole. And he never addresses, which in Chicago is very high, black-on-black crime. Neither does his buddy Oprah Winfrey that just won the Medal of Freedom. Really? You went to South Africa and helped them build a school. What have you done for your people in Chicago? Nothing. I mean, seriously, she went to South Africa to build a school, and I'm doing so much good for the homeland. Lady, you're from Chicago. You're from the USA. You're a billionaire, and you really haven't done anything to help the inner city neighborhoods that do not have proper education. You haven't done anything to help the black community in Chicago. And black-on-black crime there is extremely high, just like in Detroit, just like in New York City. A lot of it is drug-related and prostitution-related. It's related to, these crimes that shouldn't be crimes. And nothing's done. And so she's given the Medal of Freedom. For what? She hasn't done anything. The only thing she's done is done the same thing and is pushing this racist agenda that, anybody that's against Obama is racist. She said that to the BBC. That's muddying the waters, that's stirring up trouble, that's not helping. I'm in an interracial marriage. I have a daughter and another daughter on the way. What worries me is the fact that this empowers racists because they become infuriated, at all the stuff they're doing. They feel attacked, even though their philosophy and mindset is might be warped. They feel like they're being attacked through policy and everything else, and it just adds fuel to the fire. I mean, the KKK, if you go to their website, they're not advertising themselves as a, white supremacy Christian group anymore. They're advertising themselves as a political group that is for the protection of the white race in America, and we don't want to harm any other racial group. We just want to protect our own. And when people see that, there's some gullible people out there that they're going to think, oh, well, they've changed their ways. Now they're this, nice KKK. And so their membership goes up. And it's usually people that are not overtly racist. They just don't like what's going on in the country. And so it adds fuel to the fire. And now you have this going on that really hasn't been addressed, which is the knockout game, which is mainly being implemented by black teenagers against other minorities, other races, Jews, white people, Asians. I mean, they're going around just hitting them as hard as they can in the back of the head, trying to knock them out, and several people have died. But you don't see Obama, crying out, stop the violence. You don't sit there and say, anything about this. But he made a big to-do about the Trayvon Martin case. He had Holder, looking into it and investigating it. But he doesn't investigate this, and he doesn't investigate the causes of most black-on-black crimes. He doesn't look into those things that are really affecting inner cities, that need to be changed so that we can really end gun violence in this country or reduce it. He doesn't look to provide better situations for people in inner cities, like Chicago, where he came from. where he was, in the political arena. This is it, and that's the thing. So you get called a racist if you knock him, but what he's doing is stirring up trouble. And those in the middle, those in interracial relationships, those that, are not racist but see the harm that's being caused by all of this, and fear for themselves because of backlash. I've seen it. I've seen racism firsthand. I've had to protect my family from it. We were in the western part of Virginia, and we had people follow us into the, 3 or 4 white people follow us into the McDonald's there because my wife had to change our daughter. One stood by the door while the other two, after cutting me a dirty glance, went and acted like they were getting something to eat. And the guy stood by the door and guarded it and watched me. And I had to go and get my wife and say, you need to hurry up, we need to get out of here now. Because I knew they were planning something not so great. So I've seen racism firsthand. I've heard people make comments. I've had all kinds of different things happen to us. Not horrible, but still, bad enough. And when you have somebody like this doing this, and especially because he is interracial, he's not really just black, there's going to be backlash and repercussions for his actions because he's not being fair and balanced in how he's handling these situations. And you have people that sit there and they're just stuck in that mentality of the past. We can't move forward if we're so stuck on the fact that, of this racial divide. Yes, there are white races, but there's also black races, there's Asian races, there's Hispanic racists, there's all these different racists in the country. You're not going to minimize it by attacking one, race over another. You're not going to win any credibility by vilifying the white race because you're black. We're all human. First and foremost, we're all human. And yet we're not looking at it that way. We keep digging up the past and using it against one another, and we just can't move forward. And when we have somebody in there that's not going by Martin Luther King's vision of judging people not by the color of their skin but the content of their character, and is just making a big deal out of something that shouldn't have been, whenever they can, they're looking for it. Obama was up there saying that, Trayvon Martin would reminded him of what his son would have been. And it's a scary thing. He doesn't understand that there are people that listen to that and are not, of the right mindset and can be retaliatory. This was made into a big deal out of nothing. And I know that's off subject of everything, but it's not. People need to stand up to this man and understand that just because you might be labeled, it's the right thing to do. He's not for the benefit of the American citizens. He's not for the benefit of the individual. He's for the special interest groups. He's for those that back him. He's for those that paid for his campaigns. If you want to look at it in deeper conspiracies, you can, but at the base limit, that's what it is. People paid for him and bought him off, just like any other politician. Most all politicians are bought off. I think Ron Paul and a few others are the exception to the rule. But most are establishment pawns. so they can get whatever they want. And it's worked for over 100 years. So it's going to take a long time to correct this. If we start now, we can correct it. We can win it back. Win back this country. We can, restore the Constitution in this country. But we can't be afraid of labels. We can't be afraid of somebody because he's being projected as something he's not. Most of the people that voted for him in 2008 and 2012 voted for him because he was black. I know people don't want to hear that, but the census and the polls speak for themselves. That the primary reason they voted for him was because he was black. And he's playing to these special interest groups that got him in office, and he's overstepping his bounds. I'm all for gay rights, but not when they impede others. Not when it's being forced on others. That's when it oversteps its bounds. That's when he's just playing into that special interest group, that minority, to win votes. And that's just one example. But people are blind to the fact that he really has not stood up and to most of his promises. He's actually gone the opposite direction. So I say to anybody that's a liberty lover, a constitutionalist, a libertarian, do not be afraid of labeling. And don't feed into it. Don't sit there and when somebody calls you that, fire back. Don't do that, because you're feeding into that. They win. Because once you do that, then they have see you are. Don't play into it. Fire back with facts. Fire back with logic. Not with emotion, with logic. And that's the way we'll win this. And with that, because it's been an hour, I will leave you. Just think about that. Thanks for joining me. Have a good night.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.